The Adventure of the Speckled Roadman. Today we're doing John Buchan's The 39 Steps, and we're up to Chapter 5, The Adventure of the Speckled Roadman. Today we're doing John Buchan's The 39 Steps, and we're up to Chapter 5, The Adventure of the Spectacled Roadman. Hey everyone, and welcome to Goodnight with D.M.W. Wright. If you're new and don't know the drill, save this video and come back to it when you're ready to hit the hay, and I'll tell you a story. If this vid is midway through the book, or if you want a different book, you can find all chapter 1s in the playlist on my channel. Like and subscribe, and we can do this every night, so if you're ready for sleep, let's get into it. Goodnight with D.M. Wright is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This episode is brought to you by the letter Z and Boba Fett's toe. The Adventure of the Speckled Roadman. I sat down on the very crest of the pass and took stock of my position. Behind me was the road climbing through a long cleft in the hills, which was the upper glen of some notable river. In front was a flat space of maybe a mile, all pitted with bog holes and rough with tussocks, and then beyond it the road fell still steeply down another glen to a plain whose blue dimness melted into the distance. To left and right were round-shouldered green hills as smooth as pancakes. But to the south, that is, the left hand, there was a glimpse of a high heathery mountains, which I remembered from the map as the big knot of hill, which I had chosen for my sanctuary. I was on the central boss of a huge upland country, and could see everything moving for miles. In the meadows below the road, half a mile back, a cottage smoked, but it was the only sign of human life. Otherwise, there was only the calling of plovers and the tinkling of little streams. It was now about 7 o'clock, and as I waited, I heard again that ominous beat in the air. Then I realized that my vantage ground might be in reality a trap. Oh God. Come on. There was something for a... There was no cover for a tomfit in those bald green places. I sat quite still and hopeless while the beat grew louder. Then I saw an aeroplane coming up from the east. It was flying high, but as I looked, it dropped several hundred feet and began to circle round the knot of hill in narrowing circles, just as a hawk wheels before it bounces. Now it was flying low, and now the observer on board caught sight of me. I could see one of the two occupants examining me through glasses. Suddenly it began to rise in swift whirls, and the next I knew it was speeding eastward again, till it became a speck in the blue morning. That made me do some savage thinking. My enemies had located me, and the next thing would be a cordon round me. I didn't know what force they could command, but I was certain it would be sufficient. The aeroplane had seen my bicycle and would conclude that I would try to escape by the road. In that case, there might be a chance on the moors to the right or left. I wheeled the machine 100 yards from the highway and plunged it into a moss hole where it sank among pondweed and water buttercups. Then I climbed to a knoll which gave me a view of the two valleys. Nothing was stirring on the long white ribbon that threaded me. I have said that there was not cover in the whole place to hide a rat. As the day advanced, it was flooded with soft fresh light till it had the fragrant sunniness of the South African veld. At other times I would have liked the place, but now it seemed to suffocate me. The free moorlands were prison walls, and the keen hill air was the breath of a dungeon. I tossed a coin, heads right, tails left, and it fell headwards, so I turned to the north. In a little I came to the brow of the ridge, which was the containing wall of the pass. I saw the high road for maybe 10 miles, and far down it something that was moving, and that I took to be a motor car. Beyond the ridge I looked on a rolling green moor, which fell away into wooded glens. Now my life on the veld has given me the eyes of a kite, and I can see things for which most men need a telescope. Away down the slope, a couple of miles away, several men were advancing, like a row of beaters at a shoot. I dropped out of sight behind the skyline. That way was shut to me, and I must try the bigger hills to the south beyond the highway. The car I had noticed was getting nearer, but it was still a long way off with some very steep gradients before it. I ran hard, crouching low except in the hollows, and as I ran, I kept scanning the brow of the hill before me. Was it imagination, or did I see figures? 1, 2, perhaps more, moving in a glen beyond the stream? If you are hemmed in on all sides in a patch of land, there is only one chance of escape. You must stay in the patch, and let your enemies search it and not find you. That was good sense, but how on earth was I to escape notice in that tablecloth of a place? I would have buried myself to the neck in mud, or lain below water, or climbed the tallest tree. But there was not a stick of wood. The bog holes were little puddles. The stream was a slender trickle. There was nothing but short heather and bare hill bent and the white highway. Then, in a tiny bight of road, beside a heap of stones, I found the roadman. He had just arrived and was warily flinging down his hammer. He looked at me with a fishy eye and yawned. "Confound the day I ever left the Herden," he said, as if to the world at large. There I was at ain master. Now I'm a slave to the government, tethered to the roadside, with sayin' in and a back like a suckle. He took up the hammer, struck a stone, dropped the implement with an oath, and put both hands to his ears. "Mercy on me, my head's burstin'," he cried. He was a wild figure, about my own size but much bent, with a week's beard on his chin, and a pair of big horn spectacles. "I canna done it," he cried again. "The surveyor maun just report me. I'm for my bed." I asked him what was the trouble, though indeed that was clear enough. "The trouble is that I'm no sober. Last night my doctor Marin was warded, and they danced till fower in the byre. Me and some ither chiels sat down to the drinking, and here I am. Pity that I ever look it on the wine when it was red." I agreed with him about bed. "It's easy speaking," he moaned, "but I got a postcard yestreen saying that the new road surveyor would be round the day. He'll come and he'll no find me, and else he'll find me foul, and either way I'm a done man. I'll away back to my bed and say I'm no whale, but I doot that'll no help me, for they ken my kind o' no willness." Then I had an inspiration. "Does the new surveyor know you?" I asked. "Know him? He's just been a week at the job. He rins about in a wee motor car, and word speared the inside oot our welk." "Where's your house?" I asked, and was directed by a wavering finger to the cottage by the stream. "Well, back to your bed," I said, "and sleep in peace. I'll take on your job for a bit and see the surveyor." He stared at me blankly. Then, as the notion dawned on his fuddled brain, his face broke into the vacant drunkard smile. You're the Billy, he cried. It'll be easy enough managed. I finished that bing o' stains, so you needna chap ony mair this forenoon. Just take the barry, and we'll enoch mattle frae yon quarry doon the road to Mac a neither being the morn. My name's Alexander Trummell, and I've been 7 year God at the trade, and 20 afore that herdin' on Lythen water. My friends ca me Aiken, and well specky, for I wear glasses, being weak the sight. Just you speak the surveyor fair, and call him sir, and he'll be fell pleased. I'll be back all midday. I borrowed his spectacles and filthy old hat, stripped off coat, waistcoat, and collar, and gave him them to carry home, borrowed too the foul stump of a clay pipe as an extra property. He indicated my simple tasks, and without more ado set off at an amble bedwards. Bed may have been his chief object, but I think there was also something left in the foot of a bottle. I prayed that he might be safe under cover before my friends arrived on the scene. Then I set to work to dress for the part. I opened the collar of my shirt. It was a vulgar blue and white check, such a ploughman wear, and revealed a neck as brown as any tinker's. I rolled up my sleeves, and there was a forearm which might have been a blacksmith's, sunburnt and rough with old scars. I got my boots and trouser legs all white from the dust on the road, and hitched up my trousers, tying them with string below the knee. Then I set to work on my face. With a handful of dust I made a watermark round my neck, the place where Mr. Turnbull's Sunday ablutions might be expected to stop. I rubbed a good deal of dirt also into the sunburn of my cheeks. A roadman's eyes would no doubt be a little inflamed, so I contrived to get some dust in both of mine, and by dint of vigorous rubbing produced a bleary effect. The sandwiches Sir Harry had given me had gone off with my coat, but the roadman's lunch, tied up in a red handkerchief, was at my disposal. I ate with great relish several of the thick slabs of scone and cheese, and drank a little of the cold tea. In the handkerchief was a local paper tied with string, and addressed to Mr. Turnbull. Obviously, he meant to solace his midday leisure. I did up the bundle again, and put the paper conspicuously beside it. My boots did not satisfy me, but by dint of kicking among the stones, I reduced them to the granite-like surface which marks a roadman's footgear. Then I bit and scraped my fingernails till the edges were all cracked and uneven. The men I was matched against would miss no detail. I broke one of the bootlaces and retied it in a clumsy knot, and loosened the other so that my thick grey socks bulged over the uppers. Still no sign of anything on the road. The motor I had observed half an hour ago must have gone home. My toilet complete, I took up the barrow and began my journeys to and from the quarry 100 yards off. I remember an old scout in Rhodesia who had done many queer things in his day, once telling me that the secret of playing a part was to think yourself into it. You could never keep it up, he said, unless you could manage to convince yourself that you were it. So I shut off all other thoughts and switched them on to the road mending. I thought of the little white cottage as my home. I recalled the years I had spent herding on Lythen water, and made my mind dwell lovingly on a sleep in a box bed and a bottle of cheap whiskey. Still nothing appeared on that long white road. Now and then a sheep wandered off the heather to stare at me. A heron flopped down to a pool in the stream and started to fish. taking no more notice of me than I had been a milestone. On I went, trundling my loads of stone with the heavy step of the professional. Soon I grew warm, and the dust of my face changed into solid and abiding grit. I was already counting the hours till evening should put a limit to Mr. Turnbull's monotonous toil. Suddenly a crisp voice spoke from the road, and looking up, I saw a little Ford two-setter and a round-faced young man in a bowler hat. "Are you Alexander Turnbull?" he asked. "I am the new county road surveyor. You live at Black Hope Foot and have charge of the section from Laidlaw Byres to the Riggs. Good? A fair bit of road, Turnbull, and not badly engineered. A little soft about a mile off, and the edges want cleaning. See you look after that. Good morning. You'll know me the next time you see me." Clearly my get-up was good enough for the dreaded surveyor. I went on with my work, and as the morning grew towards noon, I was cheered by a little traffic. A baker's van breasted the hill and sold me a bag of ginger biscuits, which I stowed in my trouser pockets against emergencies. Then a herd passed with sheep and disturbed me somewhat by asking loudly what had become of Specky. "In bed with the colic," I replied, and the herd passed on. Just about midday, a big car stole down the hill, glided past, and drew up 100 yards beyond. Its 3 occupants descended as if to stretch their legs and sauntered towards me. 2 of the men I had seen before from the window of the Galloway Inn, one lean, sharp and dark, the other comfortable and smiling. The third had the look of a countryman, a vet perhaps, or a small farmer. He was dressed in ill-cut knickerbockers, and the eye in his head was as bright and wary as a hen's. "Morning," said the last. "That's a fine easy job of yours." I had not looked up on their approach, and now, when accosted, I slowly and painfully straightened my neck, after the manner of roadmen, spat vigorously, after the manner of the low Scot, and regarded them steadily before replying. I confronted 3 pairs of eyes that missed nothing. "That's where a job's, and there's better," I said sententiously. "I would rather hag yours sitting a day on your hinderlands on thy cushions. It's you and your muckle cores that wreck my roads. If we had a rights, ye should be made to mend what ye break." The bright-eyed man was looking at the newspaper lying beside Turnbull's bundle. "I see you get your papers in good time," he said. I glanced at it casually. "Aye, in good time, seeing that that paper came out last Saturday. I'm just 6 days late." He picked it up, glanced at the superscription, and laid it down to get again. One of the others had been looking at my boots, and a word in German called the speaker's attention to them. You've a fine taste in boots," he said. "These were never made a country shoemaker." "They were not," I said readily. "They were made in London. I got them from the gentleman that was here last year for the shooting. What was his name now?" And I scratched a forgetful head. Again the sleek one spoke in German. "Let us get on," he said. "This fellow is all right." They asked one last question. "Did you see anyone pass early this morning? He might be on a bicycle, or he might be on foot." I very nearly fell into their trap and told a story of a bicyclist hurrying past in the grey dawn. But I had the sense to see my danger. I pretended to consider very deeply. "I wasn't up very early," I said. "You see, my doctor was married last night, and we kept it up late. I opened the house door and even 7, and there was naebody on the road. Since I came up here, there was just been the baker and the rookhill herd, besides you gentlemen." One of them gave me a cigar, which I smelt gingerly and stuck in Turnbull's bundle. They got into their car and were out of sight in 3 minutes. My heart leaped with an enormous relief, but I went on wheeling my stones. It was as well, for 10 minutes later the car returned, one of the occupants waving a hand to me. Those gentry left nothing to chance. I finished Turnbull's bread and cheese, and pretty soon I had finished the stones. The next step was what puzzled me. I could not keep up this road-making business for long. A merciful providence had kept Mr. Turnbull indoors, but if he appeared on the scene, there would be trouble. I had a notion that the cordon was still tight around the glen, and that if I walked in any direction I should meet with questioners. But get out I must. No man's nerve could stand more than a day of being spied on. I stayed at my post till 5 o'clock. By that time I had resolved to go down to Turnbull's cottage at nightfall and take my chance of getting over the hills in the darkness. But suddenly a new car came up the road and slowed down a yard or two from me. A fresh wind had risen, and the occupant wanted to light a cigarette. It was a touring car, with the tonneau filled full of an assortment of baggage. One man sat in it, and by an amazing chance I knew him. His name was Marmaduke Jopley, and he was an offence to creation. He was a sort of blood stockbroker who did his business by toadying eldest sons and rich young peers and foolish old ladies. Marmy was a familiar figure, I understood, at balls and polo week and country houses. He was an adroit scandalmonger, and would crawl a mile on his belly to anything that had a title or a million. I had a business introduction to his firm when I came to London, and he was good enough to ask me to dinner at his club. There he showed off at a great rate and patted his duchesses till the snobbery of the creature turned me sick. I asked the man afterwards why nobody kicked him, and was told that Englishmen reverence the weaker sex. Anyhow, there was now Natalie dressed in a fine new car, obviously on his way to visit some of his smart friends. A sudden daftness took me, and in a second I had jumped into the tonneau and had him by the shoulder. "Hullo, Jopley," I sang out. "Well met, my lad." He got a horrid fright. His chin dropped as he stared at me. "Who the devil are you?" he gasped. "My name's Hannay," I said. "From Rhodesia, you remember?" "Good God, the murderer!" he choked. "Just so, and there'll be a second murder, my dear, if you don't do as I tell you. Give me that coat of yours, that cap too." He did as he was bid, for he was blind with terror. Over my dirty trousers and vulgar shirt I put on his smart driving coat, which buttoned high at the top, and thereby hid the deficiencies of my collar. I stuck the cap on my head and added his gloves to my get-up. The dusty roadman in a minute was transformed into one of the neatest motorists in Scotland. On Mr. Jopley's head I clapped Turnbull's unspeakable hat and told him to keep it there. Then with some difficulty I turned the car. My plan was to go back the road he had come, for the watchers, having seen it before, would probably let it pass unremarked, and Marmy's figure was in no way like mine. "Now, my child," I said, "sit quite still, and be a good boy. I mean you no harm. I'm only borrowing your car for an hour or two, but if you play me any tricks, and above all you open your mouth, as sure as there's a God above me, I'll wring your neck. Savvy?" I enjoyed that evening's ride. We ran 8 miles down the valley, through a village or two, and I could not help noticing several strange-looking folk lounging by the roadside. These were the watchers who would have had much to say to me if I had come in other garb or company. As it was, they looked incuriously on. One touched his cap in salute, and I responded graciously. As the dark fell, I turned up a side glen, which, as I remember from the map, led into an unfrequented corner of the hills. Soon the villages were left behind, then the farms, and then even the wayside cottage. Presently we came to a lonely moor where the night was blackening, the sunset gleam in the bog-hole pools. Here we stopped, and I obligingly reversed the car and restored to Mr. Jopley his belongings. 1,000 thanks, I said. There's more use in you than I thought. Now be off and find the police. As I sat on the hillside watching the tail light dwindle, I reflected on the various kinds of crime I had now sampled. Contrary to general belief, I was not a murderer, but I had become an unholy liar, a shameless impostor, and a highwayman with a marked taste for expensive motor cars. That's it from me tonight. I'm D.M. Wright. Say hi to your cat for me. Good night and have a good sleep.